Hey everybody, Chet McGurry with the City of Beatrice. Today I kind of want to take you through the Dempster site as we start the process to start demolishing this building, the actual compound, several buildings. We're in the process of removing asbestos now, but we kind of want to give you an overview of what the entire compound of this looks, exactly how big of a building we're dealing with, and the hurdles we've got to get this started. So come with me. All right, we are in the interior compound of the Dempster structure. This is kind of the center hub in between all of the buildings. So behind me is the main building you see from the street. But back in here, a lot of people don't know what all's back in here. So we'll turn the camera a little bit here and I'll tell you what we've got. She goes around. There we have the old foundry building where they did a lot of the casting and blast furnaces. All the way down on that side we have the wood shop where they did a lot of the packaging, pallets, crates for shipping stuff. That's looking west. As you turn, here is some of the more of the main building, the manufacturing part of this area. This building, they had a lot of machines for manufacturing windmill parts and parts for their products, like the recycling carts that they made later on. You come back around and you're at the main structure, and we'll get up into that in a little bit. Behind me, you can see the fire damage that we had from March. It was quite extensive. Took down several of one of the buildings back here, the loading dock, which was the origin of the fire, and then burned that way. So a lot of rubble back here that we're separating out. So we'll kind of go through the buildings now, and we'll head over and do the foundry and move on from there. Here we are in the interior of the foundry building. This is not one of the worst buildings on the property in terms of asbestos insulation. Up high we have some of the old steam pipes, and that's usually where you'll see a lot of the asbestos insulation wrapping on those. This building doesn't have any asbestos tile flooring, which is kind of a pain to deal with. This is all scheduled to be removed and demolished. All right, here we are in the west end of the foundry. This would have been the blast furnace room, where they melted the metals and things they cast for the parts for windmills and the other products they created. At one point it was coal-fired and it was converted to electricity. As you can see, it's in pretty heavy disrepair. Nature is reclaiming this structure with the trees and vines and everything growing up in here. This is one of the cleaner buildings. No, I don't believe there's any asbestos in this portion of the building. All right, here we have the wood shop. This is the exterior portion. I assume this was kind of their lumberyard where they kept materials for making their packaging, crates, pallets, whatever they use for shipping their parts all over the country. You can see this building is in pretty heavy disrepair. Roof tin coming off, the beams are buckling. There's flood damage from a few years ago on the south end, and it's kind of collapsed in the corner, so not structurally sound anymore. And this is the interior of the wood shop where they did the woodworking, packaging, making the crates and pallets. You can see that the interior of this building is in a horrible state of disrepair. The ceiling has come down. There's a lot of debris left over, packing material, pallets and things left over like that. To the south, we have a warehouse area that's full of pallets and junk left over from a time gone by. So as we move south into one of the manufacturing structures, this is more of a large steel structure. There's a large crane in here for moving things around. A little bit of asbestos in here, mainly on steam pipes. Windows, they'll have to remove windows and grout and stuff in here. Here you can see the asbestos piping. We start to see, as we get to the main building, we'll see more and more of this stuff that has to be removed.
Again, this is more of a large open structure, which will require some effort to demolish this one. All right, here we are on the south end of the compound. This would have been the old railroad loading dock. You can see the workers are working on this section of the building, getting the asbestos out of the windows. Most of those contain grout that has to be removed. Obviously, we won't be going into this building as it's an active cleanup site. But again, more manufacturing part of the plant here, and this one is 3 stories, so a lot of work to be done in there. All right, here we are entering the south end of the main building that you see from the street. Kind of a painting booth area. There's a lot of graffiti on the walls, stuff painted here, and we're not going to share that with you, but here's a look of the inside of the main building. Still in the south area of the building, this area would have been a test area for the windmills, the windmill pumps. There's a huge tank of water below this wood floor, so just one of the hazards in here for people that may be in here messing around. Continuing on in the south part of the main front building, this building is the part you see from the street when you drive by. This area housed some paint booths, and of note, we had the transformers in here. If you remember a few years ago, we had some people get in here stealing copper out of these old transformers, spilled the contaminated oil, the PCBs and everything out of these. The EPA came in, helped mitigate that, cleaned this up, got that all out of here. Moving more into the manufacturing area, moving north, this was used up to a few years ago when they were still manufacturing the Alley Cat recycling trailers and some of their fertilizer spreaders. This is the second floor of the south end of the main front building. You can see we have a lot of structural damage from the leaking roof going on. The roof is beginning to collapse here on the south side, and kind of the floor here is rotting out. It won't be long we'll lose this roof, and that'll probably push through the floor and into the main floor. And here we continue on the second floor of the south building. We're looking west across the catwalk. Obviously, this is the area where they are doing some of the asbestos removal. As you can see, this building has 3 floors. All the windows on this will have to be removed because of the asbestos-containing grout. And we'll take a peek into their photo lab here, where they did all their own photo work for their advertising and slicks. And we'll move a little further north into the engineering room. Here we'll see a lot of leftover junk that they left behind, massive amounts of paperwork and folders and things like that. So we get closer to the fire area. Most of this stuff's been destroyed, and mainly piles of ashes anymore. A lot of asbestos flooring in here, so there's a lot of work to be done here. There's ceiling tile or ceiling coverings that need to be scraped to get all the asbestos abated in here. And there's more of the engineering office space on the west side of the front building. You can see we're getting in close to where the fire destroyed the center of the building. We used to be able to access all the building from here, but we no longer are able to cross through there. Now we're in the main clerical office area on the second floor of the front building, the east side that you see along the highway. Most of this probably has not been used in 20, 30, 40 years. Kind of looks more like a time capsule out of a 60s office area. Lots of paperwork, workbooks, manuals scattered about, debris thrown all over by vandals. They kind of scattered everything around in here. Still pretty close to the fire, so there's a lot of smoke damage and heat damage in here. And you can kind of see the debris that we're dealing with that will have to be cleaned up. Just the human debris left behind when the facility was abandoned. All right, here we have the vault. When they left all their paperwork and all the records and receipts and all that stuff in here. The only thing they took was the door. Throughout most of the plant on the exterior buildings, most of the asbestos is contained on the steam piping, the wrapping on the pipes, windows and grouting and stuff. But in this office, this one was a little more modern, and you'll see a lot of asbestos floor tile. As you can see here, it does not burn, it just buckles. So in this area, where they had the cubicles, the engineering area, this is going to be the bulk of the asbestos removal. And they need to scrape the ceilings in here as well. So this will be the heavy lifting of the asbestos abatement, if you will.
Now we're kind of we're back outside. We're looking at the remnants of what would have been the loading dock area. This was our origin of our fire when this started. So this is most of the fire damage, the buildings that were lost back here, the boiler room, and see other areas. I'm not exactly sure what they were used for. Large iron structure that was back here. You see that the boilers are still laying in the pit. Those will have to be dealt with. They contain asbestos, so they'll be lifted out of here and disposed of.
All right, now we are on the north side of the fire damage there that gutted the center of the building. There's a little bit of fire penetration into this area. The floor from the second floor is starting to collapse. We have a little bit of asbestos in the windows and some steam piping here, but not a lot of cleanup for the crews. All right, this room on the north side, we have some more manufacturing area here. A little bit of history in this room. This room housed a large press that they made ammunition during World War II. There's a large pit here that's full of grease. You can see where that was. That was removed a few years ago. But other than that, a lot of steam piping, more asbestos here, and some windows that'll have to be removed to get this all cleaned up. Still in the north building here, we kind of take a look west here. You can see that there's a lot of asbestos insulation on these old pipes. And all these windows in here tested positive, so these will all be removed to get the grout out. So a little bit of cleanup to do in here. And this is the farthest north room on the main complex here. You can see we've got a little bit of asbestos insulation on piping and some more windows to be removed. A few years ago we had a collapse of the back corner on this one, so this building is starting to come down on its own, so it has its own safety hazards going on here along with the asbestos. And our final little building here, it's a well testing, so there's a deep pipe that they tested well parts here. A lot of debris and junk inside of here, and it's kind of hard to get around because this building's really been overgrown by trees and vegetation.
So that kind of concludes our tour of the back area of the Dempster's building, the part that the public really doesn't get to see that much, and the scope of the damage and the debris we're going to be dealing with. You can see we're in phase 1 with the asbestos removal right now. We're in the process of acquiring the last portion of this building so that we can start working on the demolition process. But it's going to take some time. We've got some grants to apply for and some more cleanup to do, but we are working on it, but it's going to take us a little while to eat this elephant.